الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وبعد. Inshallah, today we're in the first going into the second of Dhul Hijjah. It's on the Friday of 1435. If possible, the day of Arafah is coming now in another 7 days as of Maghrib. Those that are able to do so have the remittance and forgiveness for the year before of sins and the year after of sins, based upon the hadith in Sahih Al-Jami'ah. So someone who can fast the 9th, let him wait for those 7 days and fast. If someone is able to, because the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam said in a hadith in Sahih Al-Jami'ah, that the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are of the best of the days of the creation. So if someone can fast, if they're able to, barring illness or other obligations, if they're able to fast in these early first 9, let them do so. And on the 10th, let them benefit from the Eid, inshallah. Now, we, inshallah, today are going to be returning back to the text by Imam Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, ul-Masir Fi Ilm it-Tafsir. So Imam ibn Al-Jawzi rahimahullah starts us off with Surah Maryam, which is the 19th surah. He begins by saying, quote, Surah Maryam is a Meccan surah by consensus without any difference of opinion that we know of. Muqatil mentioned that it is a Meccan surah with the exception of the prostration that one makes within that surah. For the eye of prostration in Surah Maryam, Muqatil says, is from Medina. The Grand Imam Hibatullah says that Surah Maryam is a Meccan surah other than 2 ayat, which are ayat 59 and 60. This surah begins with its heading, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. And the Exalted One says, Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad Dhikru Rahmati Rabbika Abdahu Zakariya إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وكانت امرأتي عاقرا فهب لي من لدنك وليا يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب واجعله رب رضيا يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يحيى لم نجعل له من قبل سميا قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام وكانت امرأتي عاقرا وقد بلغت من الكبر عتيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا قال رب اجعل لي آية قال آيتك ألا تكلم الناس 3 ليال سويا فخرج على قومه من المحراب فأوحى إليهم أن سبحوا بكرة وعشيا كاف ها يا عين صاد. The remembrance of the mercy of your Lord to his slave, Zechariah. When he called on his Lord quietly in an enclosed space, he said, Lord, indeed my bones have become weakened, my head has become grayed with age. And if I have no help from you in supplication, Lord, I am indeed lost. Indeed, those who shall come behind me have been cut off, and my wife is barren. Send someone who shall come after, that shall inherit of me and inherit from the household of Yaqub. Make him, O Lord, a pleasure. Make him a master. The reply was, Zechariah, indeed we give you glad tidings of a boy whose name is Yahya, and we did not make that for him as a name from anyone beforehand. He said, Lord, shall I have a boy while my wife is barren, and already I've reached old age? He said, likewise. Your Lord said, such a matter for me is small indeed. I created you from before, and you had been nothing beforehand. He said, Lord, give me a sign so that I might know. He said, your sign is that you shall not speak to the people for 3 nights concurrently. Zechariah came out to his people, having left from the place of prayer, and indicated this to them, giving glorification morning and evening. Surah Maryam, the 19th Surah, ayat 1 to 11. As for the statement Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad, Ibn Kathir recites it thusly. Now, it is also given its right by Abu Amr in this same fashion, while Nafi' recites the Ha and the Ya in a different fashion, in which it is Kaf, and then after it's He, Ye, Ain, Sad. In addition to this, the others fall into 1 or 2 camps. Now, there are 4 statements regarding these letters that come at the beginning of surahs in this fashion that the scholars of commentary have given. One is that these letters are from the names of Allah, and this is the position of the vast majority. Now, in saying that these are names of Allah, the vast majority differ further, because they are now looking at each individual letter. In this case, it's the letter Kaf in the beginning, and they say, what is this letter? Some say that the Kaf stands for the name of Allah, Al-Kabir, the most grand. Others in the second group say that this stands for the name of Allah, Al-Kareem, the most generous. The third group say that this stands for the name of Allah, Al-Kafi, the sufficer. All of this was mentioned and narrated from the chain of transmission of Sa'id ibn Jubayr through Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma. The fourth statement is that it is referring to Al-Malik. This was mentioned by Muhammad ibn Ka'b. As for the letter Ha, which comes after the Kaf, all of the scholars are agreed that the Ha here is referring to Al-Hadi, the guider, which is the name of Allah. There's only one person who says differently, and that is Al-Qurdi. Al-Qurdi says that the Ha is in reference to the Ha in the name Allah. As for Ya, the Ya is referring to first Al-Hakim. Al-Hakim. Secondly, it refers to Ar-Rahim, the most merciful. Al-Hakim, the first being the most wise. Ar-Rahim being the most compassionate. The third is Al-Amin, the most trustworthy. Again, these being narrated from Sa'id ibn Jubayr, from Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu. As for the Ain coming after the Ha, the scholars say that it's referring to the following names. First, Al-Alim, the all-knowing. Al-Alim, the all-knowing. Number two, Al-Alim, the knower. The third, Al-Aziz, the Almighty. And then finally, Al-Adl, the most just. These have been mentioned by Ibn Abbas and Ad-Dahhak. After the Ya, after Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain comes Sad. Now for Sad, the scholars say that Sad is referring to Al-Sadiq, the truthful. Secondly, as-suduq. As-suduq. The forever truthful. As-suduq. The forever truthful. Both of these being mentioned by Ibn Abbas. And then finally, As-Samad, the eternal, as said by Muhammad ibn Ka'ab. It has been mentioned that the letters Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad are not only names of Allah, but Allah swore by His names, as narrated by Ibn Abi Talha, and also Ali Ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, who said that it's one of the names of Allah. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam would say, O Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad, forgive me. Az-Zajjaj said that, so this oath that is given, Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad, is not one name, it is a compound of names. So the fact that Ali used this as a dua is not a proof that it is one name as some claim. Rather, it is a collection. The dua being made by the worshipper with these letters is proof on the attributes of Allah, and he calls on them by these attributes. It is as if he's saying, O sufficer, O guider, O knower, O truthful one. And that Allah is swearing by these names, so he's accepting this oath. So he's saying, by the sufficer, by the guider, by the knower, by the most truthful. These are clear. Some have said that this is also Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad is also the name of the surah, as mentioned by Al-Hasan and Mujahid. While some have said that it's also, because it's from the names of Allah, it's also from the names of the Quran as well. Now, if it should be said, why is it they say Ha, Ya, and they don't say regarding Kaf, Ka, and Ain, A, and in Sad, Sa? Why? The answer regarding this was already given by Al-Ambadi, because there are some 29 places where this happens in the Quran. And whenever you're introducing a statement, you always introduce it with the most noble of titles, and Allah is putting His most noble titles. Right after this, Allah says, the remembrance of the mercy of your Lord. So this is what Allah is saying He's giving you, the mercy. Lord over the slave, He's giving this. So here Zechariah called on his Lord. Now, the reason why he concealed his supplication, there are 3 reasons why Zechariah made the supplication quietly in himself and concealed it. One is that out of fear of the shirk of showing off in deeds. As mentioned by Ibn Jurayj. Number 2 is that so that the people might not say, Look at this old man begging for a child when he's old. This was mentioned by Muqatil. The third reason is that so that those people from the sons of his uncle might not show enmity towards him, thinking that he dislikes that someone else should be in his place rather than his own progeny. This was mentioned by Abu Sulaiman al-Dimashqi. This narrative mentioned in the Quran is also proof of the praiseworthiness of the dua being made in secret. Don't you remember the statement of the Prophet ﷺ and the hadith in Bukhari where he said, "You are not calling upon a deaf Lord," as a warning about shouting in the dua. Then he mentioned, Allah the Exalted says, he said, "Lord, indeed my bones have become weakened." So the weakening of the bones here being referred to is that their strength is going due to old age. And that expression being used, shakka dhihaba adrasi, he was concerned about the loss of his strength, which literally translated is the loss of the grip of his molar teeth, which is the basis of his strength. And my head has become gray. Now this expression, وَاشْتَعَلَ الرَّأْسُ شَيْبًا, means that gray hair has spread all over his head. Just like sparks from a fire spread all over wood. This is from some of the most beautiful ways of expressing something in Arabic. And without your supplication, I have nothing, and I am lost, because you can return my supplication by answering me. Only you can help me. And indeed, I fear the loss of those to come after, meaning lineage. They are the children of the uncle, the near relatives that will come from after his death. Now, the reason why he was concerned about not having lineage to come after and the household of his uncle coming after him after his death is that he feared that they would inherit. And he did not want this to happen. Now, someone may say, how is it possible for a prophet to possibly be concerned about the inheritance rights of his near relatives being handed out after his death? The answer to this fear and the question about the fear is from two standpoints. One is that he's a prophet, and prophets aren't supposed to be inherited from. So he was concerned that they might take his wealth when in fact prophets aren't supposed to be inherited from. It's not permissible. Number two is the natural desire that he has that he might have a son to give his wealth to. So I say that the explanation of this then is it's necessary that he has someone to hand his wealth over to. Even if he's not an inheritor, it's better that he hands the wealth over to a son if someone's in this situation. Nabiyuna Zakaria alayhi salam also feared the children of his uncle destroying the goodness of the deen that he brought. And this was mentioned by some of the scholars of commentary. And then he said, give me from yourself, فَهَبْ لِي مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا. So give me from yourself a protector to come after, meaning a righteous child that will inherit the wealth. He shall inherit me and inherit from the household of Yaqub. Now, the inheritance mentioned in this ayah is firstly talking about the inheritance of wealth. But the wealth of the household of Yaqub is prophethood, as discussed by Ikrimah from Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma and Abu Salih. It's also that the inheritance of knowledge, because the inheritance of knowledge from the household of Yaqub is the dominion. And Allah answered this by giving him a son with knowledge, but he didn't give him dominion. And this is narrated by Ibn Abbas. To narrate, to inherit from him his prophethood and his knowledge from the household was also mentioned by Al-Hasan al-Basri, along with Ata and Mujahid. Because you must remember that Zakaria was from the lineage of Yaqub, and that the household of Yaqub were his family, including those from his lineage that were also his paternal uncles and maternal uncles. So it's authentically been given by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said in a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, we prophets do not leave behind an inheritance. Rather, we leave behind sadaqah, charity. Now, it was claimed by Al-Kalbi that the Ala Yaqub being referred to was not Yaqub, the father of Yusuf, but it was Yaqub ibn Mathan, which was a pious ancestor. And that this Yaqub, as well as Imran, the father of Maryam, were both brothers. Which explains why Nabiyuna Zakaria alayhi salam is her uncle. Now, someone could say, it doesn't seem possible that a prophet of Allah could feel sadness on his wealth going after his death, when it goes to the inheritors who may have a right in the revealed law. But remember another statement that the Prophet ﷺ said, in which he said in a hadith in the Musnad, indeed, Zakaria was a carpenter. So what he left behind might have been looted by, or his inheritors might have been prepared to loot his wealth under false pretenses. Then it was said, and make him Lord pleasing to you, meaning the child that shall come. And then it was answered, Zakaria, indeed we give you glad tidings. So Allah answered him by saying, O Zakaria, we give you glad tidings. Now we've already explained some of this in Surah Al Imran, the 3rd Surah 39. Then Allah says, we did not make anyone before to have a name such as this. Now what this means is the following. It means no one was named Yahya prior to this time. And this is the position of the vast majority. No one had this name Yahya prior to this time. So we have seen, someone might ask, but wait a minute, what is the benefit of praising a name that no one's ever been named with before? And we see many names that haven't been named with before. Why is this one so beneficial? The answer is that the goodness of the virtue that Allah gave is that He named this child. And He didn't leave the naming of the child to the parents. But He, Allah, named him with a name that hadn't been given before. It's also the fact that a barren woman did not give birth to a child like him before with this name. So he had no equal in his time, either physically or otherwise. And it's mentioned that when Nabiyyuna Zakaria alayhi salam spoke, he said, indeed, my wife is barren, which was also discussed in Surah Al Imran, the 3rd Surah 39. So the speech that he used was also one of emphasis to highlight the dire plight of his situation. So since she was aqir, since she was barren, there was no way he could understand how this could come to pass. And then he also mentioned, and I've reached old age as well. But Allah the Exalted said, but the command is, so shall it be. As a gift, you shall have the gift of a child in old age. And the creation of such is easy for me, He, Allah, said. I created you from before, meaning you were brought into existence from beforehand. And you had been nothing, meaning the creation of the child had not been before, and then Allah, He's going to cause her to conceive a child. His creation was just like the child's creation, from nothing. Now this was already discussed again in Surah Al Imran, the 3rd Surah 39. And when he asked for a sign, Allah told him, for 3 days you shall not speak to the people. So he was perfectly fine, but he wasn't made deaf or dumb. He was perfectly fine. But the command was that he not speak to them. He was forbidden from speaking while he was perfectly sound. So he wasn't hindered. So he came out to his people in the early parts of the night, the same time after his wife had conceived, after they came together, from his place of prayer. This was mentioned in Surah Al Imran, the 3rd Surah 39. And he, Nabiyyuna Zakaria alayhi salam, wrote his people a letter and indicated that they should pray in the morning and the evening. Bukratan wa ashiyya was already discussed in Surah Al Imran, the 3rd Surah 39. And the meaning is that he comes out to his people, he commands them to pray in the morning and evening. His wife then conceives, and he commands them to pray as a form of glad tidings. Now remember the statement where Allah said, يا يحيى خذ الكتاب بقوة وآتيناه الحكم صبيا وحنانا من لدنا وزكاة وكان تقيا وبرا بوالديه ولم يكن جبارا عصيا وسلام عليه يوم ولد ويوم يموت ويوم يبعث حيا واذكر في الكتاب مريم إذ انتبذت من أهلها مكانا شرقيا فاتخذت من دونهم حجابا فأرسلنا إليها روحنا فتمثل لها بشرا سويا قالت إني أعوذ بالرحمن منك إن كنت تقيا قال إنما أنا رسول ربك لأهب لك غلاما زكيا قالت أنى يكون لي غلام ولم يمسسني بشر ولم أك بغيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين ولنجعله آية للناس ورحمة منا وكان أمرا مقضيا فحملته فانتبذت به مكانا قصيا فأجاءها المخاض إلى جذع النخلة قالت يا ليتني مت قبل هذا وكنت نسيا منسيا فناداها من تحتها ألا تحزني قد جعل ربك تحتك سريا وهزي إليك بجذع النخلة تساقط عليك رطبا جنيا. O Yahya, take the book with power, and we gave him the judgment at a young age, and clarity of thought from the goodness and charity and purity, and he was indeed pious. The enjoyment, he also had the enjoining of goodness towards his parents, and he was not an oppressor nor disobedient. Peace is upon him the day he was born, peace the day that he dies, and the day that he shall be resurrected alive again. Mention in the book Maryam, when she betook herself away from her family to a place that was eastward. She took a veiled station, and we sent to her our spirit that came in the form of a well-made man. She said, I seek refuge in the most merciful from you, if indeed you have any piety. He said, indeed, I am a messenger of your Lord, to come with the glad tidings to you of a pure young boy. She said, indeed, I shall have a boy, while no man has touched me, and I have not committed any transgression. He said, likewise, your Lord said, it is a thing easy for me. And we shall make him a sign for the people, and a mercy from us. And it is a matter that has already been decreed. So she conceived him, and betook herself with him to a place far away, driving herself against the trunk of the tree, in great pain and difficulty, saying, Oh, had I died before this, and been a thing forgotten. but we called her. She was called from a place under her near the tree. Do not mourn. Already your Lord has given from under you sustenance. Take this tree and move it, so that there might fall upon you dates that are pure and succulent. Surah Maryam, the 19th Surah, ayat 12 to 25. So the Exalted One, when he says, Yahya, O Yahya, as Zajjaj says that this ayah is referring to the fact that he was given Yahya, and it was said to him, O Yahya, take a hold of the book, meaning the Torah. So he was commanded to be still upon the judgments of the Torah, to accept the books of Allah, all of them, with faith, and act by their judgments. And we've already discussed this in Surah Al-Bakri, the second Surah, ayah 63. And we gave him the judgment, meaning understanding of the book, as said by Mujahid. Deep insight, as said by Al-Hasan ibn Al-Hasan Al-Basri and Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl. He was given knowledge of the books by Ibn As-Sa'ib, and as well as the ability to memorize the Torah and know it, as said by Abu Sulaiman al-Dimashqi. Now we've discussed this already in some detail in Surah Yusuf, the 12th Surah, ayat 23. It was narrated from Ibn Abbas that he said, whoever recited the Quran before he has reached adulthood, then he is from those who have been given the good knowledge while still at a young age. Now, as far as the statement, Sabiyya, which means as a baby, when was he given the knowledge of the books? When did this happen? Because Sabiyya means a baby or a young boy. There are two positions on this matter. One is that he received this knowledge when he was 7 years of age. And this is in a hadith from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a collection of Ad-Daylami. The second position is that he was 3 years old, as said by Qatada and Muqatil. And when the Exalted One says he was given forbearance from ourselves, as Zajjaj says that this means that he was given clear forbearance, and as Al-Ambari says that the forbearance was given for the people of his time who were wicked. And the forbearance is the mercy, as said by Ikrimah, Al-Hasan Al-Basri, Ibn Abbas, Qatada, Al-Dahaq, and others. It's also patient with the command of his Lord, as said by Mujahid. Being placid, as said by Sa'id ibn Jubayr. Having barakah, as mentioned by Sa'id ibn Jubayr as well. Having deep love for others, as mentioned by Ikrimah ibn Zayd, as well as tremendous respect. And when it was commanded with zakah, is this charity or what is this? Zakah in this sense is referring to righteous deeds as well as charity, along with purity and good character. And this was mentioned by Al-Dahaq, Qatada, Ibn As-Sa'ib, Az-Zajjaj, and others. And that he was pious, so that no one after him would be, no one in his time was as pious as him, from among his group of people. He showed goodness to his parents. So he was long-suffering and patient with them, showing goodness towards them, and not disobedient. He was not oppressive. And some of the words in this ayah, like Jabbar and Asiyah, you can see in Surah Hud, ayah 59. Then Allah says, and peace be upon him the day that he was born. This peace is referring to the peace that Allah sends, the goodness and the safety. So the question then comes, wait a minute, how could peace be upon him and you're mentioning days when it's possible that he could be born at night or die at night? Well, the answer to this question is that the intent by day here includes both the time, meaning when he was born. Not necessarily whether it was in the daytime or the nighttime, but when he was born, at the time he was born. Just like Allah says, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. Today I have perfected your religion for you and completed my favor upon you. Surah Al-Ma'idah, the 5th surah, ayah 3. It doesn't mean that it happened necessarily at day or nighttime. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh said that the salam on Nabiyuna Yahya alayhi salam was when he was born. And Al-Hasan al-Basri said, At-Taqi, the righteous and pious Yahya and Isa, they both received this. And Yahya at one point said to Isa, you are better than me. But Isa said to Yahya, no, you're better than me. Allah sent peace upon you, and I as well send peace upon you, but I also send peace upon myself. But Allah specifically sent peace upon you. So Allah blessed both of them. And Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam said, remember that He, Allah, blessed you, but I sent blessings on myself, while Allah personally blessed you. Sufyan ibn Uyayna radiallahu anhu had said, a man has to remember 3 outcomes. Sufyan ibn Uyayna radiallahu anhu said, one is the day that he was born in, so that he knows where he came from and who he is. Where he wants to spend his life and die at. Number 2, where he wants to spend his life and die at. And number 3, where he wants to be resurrected and who he wants to be resurrected with. Let him think about this. Allah already told Nabiyuna Yahya alayhi salam that he'll have peace and goodness in all 3 points of his life. His birth, his death, and the day he will be resurrected. Close quote. Now something very important here I want you to keep in mind is this. If you look at the language where Allah says, وَالسَّلَامٌ عَلَيْهِ, peace be upon him. This is where the Sunnis get the evidence for saying alayhi salam after the names of prophets. Because this is in a command form as well. So peace be upon him. Alayhi salam. And when we get through all of Surah Maryam, we'll see that on all the prophets, we see that Allah is saying, وَالسَّلَامٌ عَلَيْهِ, and peace be upon him. This is the evidence that we get for saying peace be upon Nabiyuna Yunus alayhi salam, Nabiyuna Yahya alayhi salam, right? So this is something that Allah actually said. I say, well then why do we say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Well, that's a different matter. That's Surah Al-Ahzab, the 33rd surah, 53, where Allah said, indeed Allah and his angels say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you who believe, say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You've heard this most likely in countless khutbas and jumu'ahs. Inna Allah wa malaikatuhu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Right? So indeed, Allah and His angels send salat and salam on His messenger. You who believe, literally, sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima, literally means say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So that's why we say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and not alayhi salam for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because Allah specifically said, you who believe, be sure you say this. But for the other prophets, He said alayhi salam. So all the prophets have their respect, but they have their different ranks as well. So we have to make sure to give people their ranks. So every prophet, whether it's Nabiyuna Yunus alayhi salam, whoever it is, we all give them their ranks. Now Imam Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he starts by saying, quote, and look at the statement of Allah and mention in the book, meaning the Quran, Maryam, when she withdrew herself and isolated herself to an easternly place. So, meaning that she went in the direction of east. Now, keep in mind that this is a noble thing because Allah is telling this in Arabic. And to the Arabs, east is always better than west. And she took a place away from her people. So she, hijaban, took a place veiled away from her people. So she was heavily veiled and covered. She was also shading herself from the heat of the sun so that no one of the people see her. So Allah protected her. She also placed a veil over the wall where she stayed at. Now the question then comes, why did she go east to in an easterly direction away from her people and isolate herself from her people? What reason would there be to do this? The first reason is because women in that time period isolated themselves and purified themselves from their monthly cycle, combed their hair, as was discussed by Ibn Abbas. And they cleaned and prepared themselves. Close quote. Now, just a very important point. Now, here it's because we have to understand Maryam as-Siddiqa alayhi salam. She is a Hebrew noblewoman. So she's coming from an Israelite family of the Aaronic priesthood. Now, you will still see this if you go to a Jewish district in your area, that if you go to an ultra-Orthodox or a Orthodox Jewish neighborhood, you will find that there are women who, when they are in a state of ritual impurity, they will not touch their husbands because they're in a state of ritual impurity during what is known as nidos. Now, during this time, they sleep in separate beds from their husbands. They do not touch their husband. They don't have skin-to-skin contact. So it's not just that they don't engage in any sexual contact. There's no physical contact. After that period of nidos is over, so the woman who has her monthly cycle, let's say if the cycle is 7 days, she also counts 3 or 4, depending, white days after to make sure that the cycle has definitely stopped. When that has happened, she then goes to what is known as the mikvah. If you go to any ultra-Orthodox Jewish neighborhood, or Orthodox Jewish neighborhood, everywhere has a mikvah. It's either at some place that's mutually agreed where people go. Gender segregation is practiced, so men have theirs, women have theirs. They'll go to the mikvah and they will beforehand take a shower, remove all makeup. If they have false teeth, they remove those, or if they have eyeshadow or any type of things, anything that would be a barrier to the waters of the mikvah, they make sure to vigorously clean off. After they've done that, they then go down into the mikvah. The mikvah will normally have 5 or 7 stairs, and they step down into the mikvah. Now there'll be a woman watching to make sure that they're fully submerged. They say a prayer, no clothes on, nothing should be blocking the water, and they completely submerge themselves. Completely. Then they come out of the water after having said their blessing. They wrap themselves in towels. The attendant helps them, and they clean themselves up. They are now in a state of tahurot, right, which we recognize as tahara. Right. They now are eligible to have sexual intercourse and to carry on all the activities they did prior to the coming of their monthly cycle. Normally, the mikvah is located in the eastern part of the city. So her going to the easterly direction would be away from her people. Why? Because she's finished her cycle and she needs to have her mikvah to be ritually purified. We recognize that as ghusl. That's what we know it as is ghusl. But what's happened is that what used to happen is Muslims in the Muslim heartland countries will go to the hammam. So what would happen is a Muslim man or Muslim ladies would go and they would remove all types of jewelry and everything. This is still in the Arab world, fortunately, and in certain sectors. And if you go to certain Arab neighborhoods in the United States, particularly among the Egyptians and some of the Syrians, they'll go after a monthly cycle is finished, although they do not have the strictures that Judaism has, obviously, because these are Muslim ladies. They will go and clean themselves vigorously and then have a ghusl, right? And that ghusl after that time. Now, for Judaism, the water from that has to be natural waters. So it's either rainwater or other waters that have to be piped in. The Muslim ladies go to the hammam. The water doesn't have to be exactly like that, but it must be tahur. Water must be tahur. And you know the shari'i hukum on tahur. I'm not going to get into it. It's not a fiqh class. But you understand what I mean. So they have to go into this water and clean themselves up. This is known as the hammam. And it is very unfortunate that because this is history, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not only giving us the revelatory information, He's giving us history. It's unfortunate that we've lost out because no one's thought to build a hammam or other places where these ladies can go and have this experience of having a ghusl and really feeling that power of where the water goes over or the guy where the water goes over. So they clean themselves off. They're in the best condition possible, and then they go over it. So what happens? People have to make do with what they have if they go upstairs and they just do so in their shower. And then what happens? There starts to be a fiqh confusion between a shower, which is a ghusl, and the actual ghusl. So what happens? They start mixing soap with the water and then they clean themselves, not realizing that by having the soap mixed with the water is no longer tahur, it's rendered tahir. So then they think they've made ghusl from janaba and they haven't, because the water has become tainted, it's no longer tahur, so they come out, so they're not in a state of ghusl, so then they make wudu. When they're not in a state of tahara, they're still hadath, then they pray and it's invalid as batil. And I'm sure there are numerous cases all over the place. And Allah knows best about how the pardoning will be or whatever else. It's not my business. But what I'm saying is that it's there. Why? Because of whenever you lift a sunnah, this is a hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's weak from one chain, but it's strong from another. He said, whenever one innovation is put down, a sunnah is lifted in its place. So you do an innovation becomes established, a sunnah gets lifted with it. Just think of this in your own way. How many innovations have you seen? I'm not saying in terms of cultural things, because that's not what we're talking about. Things that are harmful to the deen. How many things have you seen, and then in the absence of that, how many sunnahs have you seen to counteract it? There aren't any. Because the sunnah and the bid'ah, they do not occupy the same the same plane. They won't. Just like Iman and Kufr will not stay in the same heart. Someone either is a Muslim or they are a Kafir. Shirk and Tawheed cannot be in the same heart. Someone can't say that I believe that Jesus Christ is the second part of the Trinity, my Lord and Savior, the creator of the universe, the reason, one whose all things were created, and say, but I believe that Allah is one. It's not possible for those things to inhabit the same dome or the same heart or the same head because of the fact of the mutually exclusive contradicting influences of those. So, because of this, looking at this piece of history, Maryam as-Siddiqa alayha salam goes to the eastern area where she would know where it was, where the mikvah would be, and ritually cleanses herself. Right? Ritually cleanses herself. Now, again, very quickly before we move on, because this hasn't happened, let's forget about the ghusl aspect for guys. They have ladies that, because they have not been taught to make this difference between ghusl, just a shower, and the ghusl and the ritual impact of the waters that are tahur, people start to assume that the shower and the ghusl are the same. Now, this has an impact when you talk about menstrual cycles and being purified from those. Bleeding from pregnancy and the purification from those. It has a huge impact. Why? Because the waters, how you should be, what your condition should be like, how your mindset should be. If you actually go to a separate building to do ghusl in, your mindset's going to be totally different. Because you know on the way to that building, okay, this is serious, it's solemn, I need to be calm, I need to be resolute. Your attitude is going to be entirely different. And your frame of reference is going to be different. So one of the things they first did when the Catholics took over Spain from the Unitarian Visigoths, who were Arians, and from the Muslims, one of the signs that they always made it a point to go after is to destroy the hammam and the mikvahs. Because it's what made people different. We're going to destroy that. We're going to get rid of all of that. Because it wouldn't be until the 1800s that Queen Victoria would realize that bathing more than once a month or once a year actually is not going to kill you. You do the research, you'll see. The French who invented perfume before soap, because of a different understanding of what hygiene is. But the first thing they destroyed, with the exception of Hitler left them. He actually left them for his troops to use as latrines. But everywhere else where they went to uproot Islam, that's one of the first things uprooted. Let's get rid of the hammam and the Jewish mikvah right behind it. Why? Because it's something that's ritual, that's pure, that's holy, that makes the people think and focus. So when the people come out of there, they're different. Because when you're going in there, you're not your best dressed. You're just going in there to complete an obligation and an action. And when you come out, no makeup, no fanciness, no ostentation, none of those things. You're a different creature. Because the purpose of why you went out and then how you come out is not the same. Now, someone, I'm not saying it has to be anyone here, obviously, but someone should revive this thing or introduce it and lay a sunnah back down and lift up an innovation and get rid of it to reestablish this principle, which will then start to bring your fiqh questions. Hey, I just had this question I was thinking. You know, when I was taking a shower, I was mixing soap with water and everything else. Here, I can't do that. Is there some type of fiqh that's connected to that? I'm so glad you asked that question. And then you can start to have these conversations. Right now, these conversations don't make sense because the details that would have them put in place aren't there. So they don't make any sense to even have these discussions. Soap mixing with water, what's wrong with that? It's nothing to do with anything being wrong with it. It's to do with the fiqh ruling. And it's not their fault. They're not stupid. They just don't understand the ruling because the worth and the importance of that ruling has been lost because the original principle that would give that ruling importance, that's gone. So someone needs to do something. Somebody. I'm not saying everyone here, but someone. Now, Imam ibn Al-Jawzi, rahimahullah, he carries on by saying, quote, the Exalted One then says, and we sent to her our spirit, Ruhana. This is the angel Jibreel alayhi salam, according to the position of the vast majority. Ibn al-Mambadi has said, indeed, this is the angel Jibreel alayhi salam. And the word ruh has the meaning of a cool wind as well as joy. So by ruh here, it's referring to the revelation as well as the angel Jibreel alayhi salam, who's actually bringing the revelation. Now, what was the time that the angel Jibreel alayhi salam came in? When exactly did he come in unto her? There are three statements with regards to this. One is that he came to her while she was making ghusl. The second position is that he came to her after she'd finished the ghusl and she was wearing her clothes. The third understanding is that he came to her after she'd entered her home that she was staying in at the time. Now, it has been said that the intent of the word ruh here means that the angel Jibreel alayhi salam not only brought the revelation, but he also brought with him the ruh of Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam, as was mentioned by Az-Zajjaj and Al-Mawardi. And so she conceived. So the angel Jibreel alayhi salam came to her in the form of a well-made man. He looked completely human to her. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said that he came to her in the form of a young man with a bright face. And she said, indeed, I seek refuge in the most merciful from you if you have any fear and piety, meaning if you fear Allah. I seek refuge in him from you. This is the understanding of the vast majority. Now, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh said that there was a man in her time whose name was Taqi, and he was a sinful man, and she thought that maybe that's who was coming in before she saw fully that it was not him. But then it was said to her by this man, when informed of his identity, he said, indeed, I am only a messenger of your Lord, meaning do not fear. I was sent as a messenger of the Lord to give you the news of a pure young boy who has no sins and no avarice. further to this, she said, how will it be the case that I have this young boy when I've never been touched by a man, nor was I unrighteous? And likewise your Lord said. We've already discussed this in the narrative of Nabiyyuna Zakaria alayhi salam before. So Allah is saying that it's easy for him to do this, to create a child without a father, when he's done more than that before. Allah then said that he would make him a sign for the people, meaning an evidence of the might of Allah, because he was born without a father. And that he would be a mercy to whoever followed him. And his creation was a matter that was already resolved, and Allah knew in his knowledge before the creation of all things what he was going to do. So she conceived him, meaning Nabiyyuna Isa alayhi salam. Now the manner in which she conceived him is of two statements. One is that the angel Jibreel alayhi salam blew forth the ruh from his mouth, and it went into the sleeve of her dress and passed along until she conceived. This was narrated by Ibn Abbas. As-Sudai said that he blew forth the ruh, the spirit, that went forth in unto her sleeve of her dress and passed along, and it entered in through her chest, and she conceived from that moment. Second is that he spoke to her, and the words as they came entered into her mouth as she heard them, and that was speech. And this was mentioned by Ubay ibn Ka'b. Now, with regard to how long the pregnancy was, between the time of her conceiving and the time of the pregnancy, some have said that it means that the moment she conceived, she went through all the stages of pregnancy and delivered, not long after. This means that the pregnancy was not long at all. But this can't be the case, because Allah the Exalted has said she conceived and then withdrew herself with him to a far off place. This is proof that between the conception and the birth was a period of undetermined time, which had to be long at the very least. Someone else mentioned that it was 7 hours from the conception. This is mentioned by Al-Hasan al-Basri, whereas the other was mentioned by Ibn Abbas. Thirdly, that it was 9 months. And this was mentioned by Sa'id ibn Jubair and Ibn Asa'id, and is actually the position of the vast majority. Someone else said it was 3 hours, that she conceived in an hour, it was formed in an hour, she gave birth in an hour. Mentioned by Muqatil. A fifth statement is that it was 8 months and that this was also to be a sign. The sixth position is that it was 6 months, as said by al-Mawardi. And the seventh position is that it was 1 hour. Now, when she withdrew with him, meaning with the child she conceived, to a faraway place, Ibn Ishaq radiallahu anh says that the far off place was 6 miles away, according to narrative information we have, because when we say that something is qasiyya or qasi, that's the amount of distance we're discussing is 7 miles. So she fled from her people because she had conceived a child without a father, and hid from them because she was not married at this time. She then came to the area, to a palm tree, a date palm. But the date was dry in the middle of the desert. It had no foliage or leaves, nor nectar or anything of the sort. And so she said at the time, "Oh, would that I had died and been forgotten about before this time." Now, the statement, "Oh, would that I had not been anything, and that I'd been forgotten," because of the pain of the ordeal of going away and conceiving the child. And the pain was also from the delivery. Because of the severity of the delivery. But then it mentions that she was called by someone at the level of her feet or near the tree. And this was the angel alayhi salam that was there. But she was also calmed by Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam, who was to be delivered when he left from her belly. A small stream ran at her feet, as said by the vast majority, because it mentions in your Lord put under you Sariyya, a small running stream. Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam was born at that time. And Maryam as-Siddiqa alayhi salam was upset at her state and the situation that she was in. Now someone may say, but why was she upset after the water ran and Allah had given her the gifts and the favor? She was saddened or remorseful due to the place that she had to give birth in, and the fact that there was a lack of food and drink and water with which to purify herself with. So she was only thinking of her Lord. And she was also thinking of the fact that she delivered the child, she had no husband, and the test that she would undergo. The difficulty of finding a dry tree. But all these things are signs of the power of Allah in bringing Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam to be. So she moved the tree when Allah told her to, and the fresh fruits came down, and she was able to nourish herself. And these are the realities that occurred. Close quote. So just something very important then is she was upset because of the situation she found herself in, not because of, well, I'm pregnant, I have this child, but also because of the fact that I have no food or drink. And you know, if a mother is going to feed a child, she needs food and drink. She has no food, no drink, and no means to purify herself after the birth, because you're going to need to purify yourself after a birth. Even if there's no loss of blood, you'll need to purify yourself, to clean yourself after using the toilet, and so on and so forth. So this is what she was upset about, not because of anything of her own person, but because of being in this state and wanting to glorify Allah and not being able to, and being in this situation. So this is the realities that she was thinking of. I say at this point, أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم يرحم الراحمين. We've reached from ayat 1 to 25 today. Is there a question over what we've covered so far today? Yes. Sorry.
Did the companions at any point ask the Prophet ﷺ about the letters that start off Surah?
Question is, did the companions ever ask the Prophet ﷺ about the letters at the beginning of the surahs? We don't have any, alhamdulillah, we don't have any definite report from the Rasul ﷺ that they asked him about them. They tended to, things that they didn't know, they tended to just assume that it's knowledge that they won't know about, and they left it. That's one of the things the companions knew, is things that they didn't know, they tended to leave them unless it was something that was wajib, that they needed to know. Theological information that you don't always need to know, they tend to leave it. But information that you needed to know, you must make wudu. Well, how? You must pray. How? They would ask these questions. Theological affairs, like when the Prophet ﷺ described some of the angels bearing the throne as almost resembling goats in their appearance, with large heads and beautiful ram horns and their hooves and so on. So they didn't ask anything. It's beyond their frame of reference. So why would you ask? It's beyond your frame of reference. Just as when the Prophet ﷺ said that the Arsh is the biggest of Allah's creations and it's beyond human measurements. So why would you say, well, how big is it? It's beyond human measurements, right? Even in science, you have what's known as infinite bigness. You can't say anything. It doesn't mean it's eternal. It just means it's beyond any measurements. We have infinite smallness, atto time. They say, well, if we brought a mosquito into the level of atto time and it moved its wings once, it will kill everybody in this room and probably put a hole with its wing through the wall and kill the neighbors next door because of the sheer size of it, the level of its wing, the sound of it, the sound of the noise that it makes, the buzzing, would probably kill people for half a mile or at least blow their eardrums out. As if we blow up an insect to atto time size, which is our real time size. Right? Infinite smallness, infinite bigness. Right? These type of things. Further questions? Yes.
The statement, East is always better than the West. Could you elaborate on that?
Question is regarding a statement from the Arabs that generally they say the East is normally better than the West, because it goes back to the understanding that the right and the East. Because normally when you're going on the right, because the Arabs, think about where the Arabs live, when they go east, where's the East? Right. Right? Day of Judgment, companions of the right hand. Right? West is usually where attackers come from. Right? It's usually where invaders come from. Usually where, and the Prophet ﷺ gave narrations regarding people coming from the Gharb, coming from the West. Right? And these are the things they worry about. Where did the Crusaders come from? From the West. Right? The Spanish Inquisition started from the West. Right? The World War II, when Erwin Rommel invaded North Africa, came from where? The West. So there's good reason why the Arabs have these understandings about the West. It's not just superstition. It's some of the orientation of where the Arabs are, and also where they're at. So they associate East, right, with these types of things, right? Where you'll have, say, the Prophet ﷺ, because the sun rises from the east. There's only a few times where he's associated the East necessarily with something bad. As in the case of the Khawarij, aka Salafiyah, or other things like that, or Musaylima, who's a precursor to that. But most of the times he associates the East with good things. Like when he talks about the people of the East, sometimes he mentions Yemen, sometimes he mentions people that are coming from the Banu Tamim, the people from the East, and they're good people. Another question? No? No? There's no final question. We'll stop here, inshallah. And we reconvene, inshallah. We'll come to the presentation of Maryam as-Siddiqa alayhi salam of Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam to her people, and the less than jovial response that was received. And we go further from there. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk innahu ghafurur rahim yarhamur rahimin. Wassalamu alaykum.